The nameplate was gone. The corner office was no longer hers. Margaret Ellis, once the most powerful woman in the building, now stood alone, in silence. Her shelves were bare. The photo of her boardroom, dusty, and the mug that once read Fortune's Fiercest Woman, cold, forgotten, like her. But just as she turned to leave that office forever, her phone buzzed. One name lit up the screen. Liam Carter, the young man she once mentored, 30, bold, brilliant, and the last person she expected to hear from. His message? Just 6 words, "You're not done yet. Meet me." This isn't just a story about age or titles. It's about what happens when a heart refuses to be counted out, when legacy meets loyalty, and when the most unexpected man becomes the one person who won't let her disappear. If you've ever felt overlooked, or if someone once reminded you that you still matter, this one's for you. Tell us below, what part of Margaret's story moved you the most? And if you caught how many times her name was mentioned, drop your answer too. We're giving warm shoutouts to a few thoughtful viewers. Watching late? That's okay. We still read every single comment, and you just might hear your name in the next one. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a story that reminds you how powerful second chances can be. Margaret Ellis had built a billion-dollar empire from scratch. Started with 2 employees and a rented loft in Chicago, turned it into Ellis Dynamics, a tech consultancy firms would kill to partner with. By 66, she was the face of resilience. Not married, no kids, just a dog named Walter and a calendar booked with board meetings, charity galas, and 5 a.m. investor calls. She wore Navy-like armor. She spoke in metrics, and in 20 years, no one ever saw her cry, until the acquisition. They called it a merger. She called it betrayal. Half the board flipped, new blood took over. Stockholders voted, and just like that, Margaret was honorably transitioned into retirement. No scandal, no press, just silence. She tried to pretend she was okay, took long walks, attended book clubs, but inside, she was fading. Liam Carter had always been different. He was 30, charismatic, confident, and unapologetically curious. The kind of man who asked why 3 times in a row, even if it made the room uncomfortable. Margaret had noticed him early, promoted him fast. The board warned her, he's too green. She disagreed. He's the future, she had said once. They laughed. He had vanished when the merger happened. Margaret assumed he left too, but the truth was, he had been building something in secret. When she arrived at the downtown cafe, Liam was already seated, laptop open, sleeves rolled up. "I found a loophole," he said without looking up. "Liam, you built Ellis Dynamics from nothing. We can build it again, together." Margaret blinked. "I'm not 40, Liam." "I know, you're better." Whispers began in the new boardroom. Why was Liam spending late nights with the former CEO? Why did he move his office closer to the elevator she used? Why did her old coffee mug suddenly show up on his desk? Margaret tried to deny it. "This is business," she told herself. But when he showed up at her door one evening with Chinese takeout and that stupid perfect smile, she let him in. They talked, for hours, about the company, the merger, her fears, and at some point their hands touched. It wasn't planned, it wasn't scandal. It was something older than time and younger than either of them knew how to handle. Liam had done it. He'd quietly acquired enough shares through a loophole in the bylaws. Legacy board members who still believed in Margaret cashed in favors. And when the time came, they put it to a vote. Should Margaret Ellis return as chair emeritus and strategic advisor? It passed. Barely. As she walked back into that same glass office she had once left in shame, the staff rose to their feet. Some clapped, some cried. Liam waited by the window, a folder in hand. "This is just the beginning," he said. She smiled for the first time in weeks. "You always were impossible. And you always deserved more than a corner office, Margaret." Margaret Ellis returned, but she didn't come back to reclaim what was hers. She came back to rewrite the future. Her title was different. The desk was smaller, but the respect in the eyes of her former employees? That was new. Earned, not ordered. And Liam? He wasn't her assistant. He wasn't her subordinate. He was her equal, on paper. But in moments between meetings when their eyes lingered a little longer than they should, the lines began to blur. Whispers started again, this time louder, sharper, harsher. Is she mentoring him or molding him? Is he sleeping his way up? Is this her second shot at power or love? Margaret heard it all. She wore pearls in silence. But inside, she was terrified. Not of the press, not of the board, of herself. Because Margaret Ellis, queen of restraint, couldn't stop thinking about Liam Carter's laugh. It happened on a Tuesday. The elevator stopped. just the two of them. Somewhere between floor 18 and 19. I didn't plan this, Liam said, chuckling. You think I did? Margaret shot back, arms crossed, but her smile betrayed her. There was silence. Long, heavy. Then he leaned in, slowly, stopped an inch from her lips. If I cross this line, he said, you can fire me. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. The kiss didn't feel like scandal. It felt like something the universe had owed them both for far too long. When the elevator jolted back to life, Margaret stepped out first. No words, no regrets. The next day, the entire office pretended nothing had changed, but everything had. HR sent a warning. The board held a closed-door meeting. A reporter from the Post called 3 times. Margaret walked into Liam's office without knocking. This can't continue. I know, he replied. She didn't expect that. He stood, walked to the window, hands in his pockets. But it will. Liam, no, listen, you built this place on your terms. Why can't we live on ours? Because I'm 66. You're 30. They'll crucify you. Then let them. I'm not here to impress them. I'm here because of you. Her breath caught in her throat. It had been years since someone fought for her. Not her company, not her brand. Just her. She sat down, eyes misting. I don't want to be your downfall. You were never the downfall, Margaret. You were always the reason I rose. The annual shareholders conference was supposed to be routine. Instead, it turned into something the press would quote for decades. A rogue investor leaked private emails implying impropriety between Margaret and Liam. Photos, messages, screenshots out of context. The room buzzed with tension. Margaret stood, calm as ever. I will not deny a personal relationship, she said into the microphone. But let me be clear. Every decision I made was in the best interest of this company. My relationship with Liam Carter has only elevated its performance, not compromised it. Dead silence. Then Liam stood. I'd rather lose this job than pretend she doesn't deserve every room she walks into. It was bold, risky, and it worked. The crowd applauded. Investors nodded. Even the coldest board members leaned in. Scandal didn't break them. It crowned them. 1 month later, they celebrated in Margaret's penthouse. Walter, her scruffy old dog, sat between them as Liam poured the wine. To second chances, he said. To impossible stories, she replied. She raised her glass, then paused. I was wrong about one thing, you know. Liam arched an eyebrow. Only one? She smiled. I didn't lose everything. I just hadn't found the one thing I never let myself want. He leaned in, touching her hand. And what's that? She whispered. Someone who sees all of me, and stays anyway. Walter barked. They laughed. The city twinkled below, unaware that in that quiet, candlelit room, 2 souls decades apart had found something most people never do. A love that didn't ask permission. It was supposed to be a routine Monday. Financial projections, growth strategy, a press briefing on sustainability metrics. But for Liam Carter, none of that mattered today. He stood behind the frosted glass of Margaret's new office, watching her from a distance. She was reviewing spreadsheets like usual, glasses low on her nose, lips pursed in that razor-sharp focus he loved so much. But today, he wasn't thinking about quarterly returns. He was thinking about legacy, and what it would mean to finally build one together. He walked in, silent, calm. She looked up. Everything okay? No, he said, pulling a velvet box from his blazer pocket. It's about to get a lot better. Her eyes widened. Margaret Ellis, you taught me how to lead. You taught me how to lose. But most of all, you taught me how to love without apology. He opened the box. A single vintage-cut diamond sat in a platinum setting, clean, bold, like her. Will you marry me? She didn't speak. Not for a full 10 seconds. Then the tears came, and with them, her answer. Yes, Liam. 1,000 times yes. They didn't invite the press. They didn't stream it on social. They didn't even tell the company until afterward. Margaret and Liam married in a garden behind her childhood home in upstate New York. It was autumn. The leaves had turned fire orange, and the air smelled like memory. Walter wore a bow tie. Liam wore navy. Margaret wore white, with sleeves, and no heels. Only 20 guests attended. Former assistants, close friends, 2 board members who had stood by her when everyone else turned away. As they exchanged vows, there was no need for elaborate speeches. They had already spoken their truths in boardrooms, in elevators, in whispered moments between spreadsheets and chaos. I don't care what they say, Liam whispered. I don't care what they say either, Margaret replied. As long as you keep pouring the wine. Laughter, kisses, a dance under string lights that swayed in the wind. It was the one day Margaret Ellis didn't feel the weight of her age, or her titles, or her history. She felt free. They announced it quietly, an email, a photo, a caption that simply read, We said yes to love and to life. The internet exploded. Headlines ranged from supportive to savage. Billionaire CEO marries protege 36 years her junior. Romance or PR move? Is this what female power looks like in 2025? Margaret refused to read the comments. Liam couldn't help himself. They're calling me a gold digger, he said one night, tossing his phone aside. She looked up from her tea. Welcome to my world. He smirked. Think we'll survive? She leaned back, eyes sparkling. We built an empire. We'll survive a few trolls. Still, it got to them. The whispers in elevators, the hesitation in investors' voices, the awkward silences in quarterly meetings, until the numbers spoke louder than the gossip. Their leadership, combined, had doubled growth in under 6 months. Clients stayed, talent returned, stock rose, and the world slowly adjusted. They didn't plan to speak publicly, but after the 5th major outlet ran another sensationalized story, Liam turned to Margaret. It's time. For what? For them to hear it from us. They sat down with 60 minutes, together, on camera. No scripts, no handlers. The interviewer asked the hard questions. Margaret, did you groom him? Liam, do you feel pressured by the power dynamic? Do you both believe this is real? Margaret's voice didn't shake. If I were 30 and he were 66, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Liam added, we lead this company together. We live our life together, and if people can't handle that, they'll have to keep up. By the time the interview aired, something shifted. Not overnight, but noticeably. More congratulations than criticism. More goals than gossip. Margaret's name began trending not for scandal, but for strength. Again, years passed. Margaret still refused to retire. Liam never asked her to. She took fewer meetings, mentored more women, wrote a book. And at night, she and Liam would drink wine on the terrace, Walter sleeping between them. Sometimes they talked about what it cost them. The stares, the comments, the days it almost didn't work. But more often, they just laughed. Remembering how it all started with a broken office chair, a faded nameplate, and 6 simple words. You're not done yet. Meet me. 5 years later, the glass walls still shimmered. Margaret Ellis was now 71. Liam Carter had just turned 35. Ellis Dynamics was no longer just a tech firm. It had become an institution. Margaret's name now graced the side of a new innovation campus in Seattle. And while Liam handled most of the day-to-day operations, Margaret still showed up twice a week. Never on schedule, always with notes. Her hair had gone completely silver. She no longer wore heels, but when she entered a room, even the interns stood up straighter. That morning, she stood at the edge of the executive conference room, quietly watching Liam lead a product launch. He was commanding, measured, warm. She smiled to herself. It wasn't just pride, it was peace. This wasn't a gamble anymore. It was everything she never knew she needed. And more. That evening, Liam came home late. Margaret was in her reading chair, glasses low, Walter snoring softly by her feet. I found something, he said, holding out a yellowed envelope. It was from her father, addressed to her, never opened, dated 40 years ago. She blinked. Your old storage unit. They were clearing it out for the foundation. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single page written in tight, slanted script. Maggie, I know you'll run something big someday. Maybe a company, maybe a country, maybe even someone's heart. Just promise me, when you meet the one person who sees you, really sees you, you won't let fear win. Love, Dad. She didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she whispered, he knew. Liam knelt beside her, and you listened. The next day, Margaret returned to the office, alone. She wasn't there for work. She just wanted to walk through it all one last time. As the elevator doors closed, a young woman stepped in, maybe 24, maybe a fresh intern. She looked nervous, clutching a leather notebook, avoiding eye contact. First week? Margaret asked softly. The girl nodded. Yes, ma'am, Margaret smiled. Don't ma'am me. I've seen what women like us can do. The girl finally looked up. Are you Margaret Ellis? I was. And I am. The girl's eyes widened. They told us stories about you and Liam Carter. Is it true? Margaret raised an eyebrow. Which part? That you built everything, even after they pushed you out. She smiled. We built it together. But yes, it's true. The girl nodded slowly. I want to do that someday. Margaret leaned in slightly. Then don't wait for permission. Walk into rooms like you belong, especially when they try to tell you that you don't. The elevator dinged. She stepped out, leaving behind more than just a hallway. She left a legacy. That night, Liam found her on the balcony, wrapped in a shawl, sipping from the same old Fortune's Fiercest Woman mug. You didn't come to the strategy meeting, he said. I was busy passing the torch. He sat beside her, their hands instinctively finding each other. "You're thinking about stepping away." "I'm thinking," she replied, "that I've done enough. That maybe now it's my turn to just live." "Travel?" "Right. Sleep in. Kiss my husband without checking my calendar." He chuckled. "We could finally take that trip to Italy. Only if we pack Walter's sweater." They sat in silence, watching the skyline flicker. Margaret turned toward him. "You know, I used to think love was a risk I couldn't afford. And now?" She rested her head on his shoulder. "Now I know. It was the one investment that paid back more than I ever gave." 1 year later, a new wing opened at Ellis Dynamics, focused entirely on mentorship, innovation, and women in leadership. They named it the Margaret Ellis Center for Visionary Leadership. At the dedication, Liam gave a short speech. "Most people know her as a CEO. Some remember her as a headline, but I knew her as the compass of my life." He looked out at the crowd. Employees, interns, executives, family. She didn't just lead, she loved. Fiercely, boldly, quietly. And that love shaped this company as much as any strategy. And in the front row, Margaret smiled, hand on her heart, whispering to herself, "You're not done yet, Ellis. You never were." Years passed like ripples across a calm lake. Margaret Ellis no longer checked quarterly reports. She now wrote handwritten notes on paper stationery and sent them to female entrepreneurs who reminded her of herself. Liam ran the day-to-day, now CEO in title, but still refused the corner office. "That seat belongs to you," he'd always say. And Margaret would reply, "It belongs to the next girl who dares to take it." Their home had grown quieter. Walter had passed peacefully at 18. A new dog, a rescue named Molly, now followed Margaret like a shadow, always curling up at her feet when she typed. But something strange started happening. Letters began arriving from people they didn't know. Young men, older women, interns, executives. All sharing one thing, how their love story had changed how they saw leadership. And love. Some left careers to chase happiness, some left bad marriages, some stayed and started building differently. One letter simply read, "I never thought I could be loved and still lead. You proved I could do both. Thank you, Margaret Ellis." She read it out loud to Liam that evening. They didn't speak after. They didn't need to. They just held hands across the dinner table. Two people, 36 years apart, but finally in the same place. It was her idea. A private dinner, just close friends and the board. No photographers, no live stream, just real toasts and real laughter. Margaret wore emerald green. Liam wore black. They entered the same ballroom where her first product launch had flopped, decades ago, and where Liam had once stood beside her, not as a husband, but as a believer. Everyone rose as she walked in. She didn't wave, she didn't cry. She just took the mic and said, "I used to think leadership was lonely, that to be respected, you had to be feared, that you couldn't be soft and strong at the same time. But I was wrong. I learned that love, the right kind of love, doesn't distract you from your destiny. It walks beside it." Liam stood then and raised his glass. "To Margaret Ellis, my mentor, my partner, my wife. You didn't just change this company. You changed the way I understand what it means to live. Thank you for choosing me when you didn't have to, and for loving me when it was easier not to." The room fell silent. Then a standing ovation, not out of formality, but because everyone knew they had witnessed something rare, something real. She wrote it in her study, one morning with soft jazz playing and Molly asleep by her feet, her last chapter. For the book, for her legacy, for herself. She titled it, "What I Know Now That I Wish I Knew Then." And it read, "You're never too old to begin again. You're never too young to lead with your heart. And if you're lucky, really lucky, you'll meet someone who doesn't just admire your strength, they'll protect your softness too." Liam, if you're reading this someday, know this. I loved you more than the company, more than the legacy, more than the words they put beside my name. Because you never saw me as a 66-year-old CEO. You just saw Margaret. And that changed everything. 10 years after her final public appearance, a portrait of Margaret Ellis now hung in the main lobby. Beneath it, a quote was etched in glass. "Power doesn't make you worthy of love. Love makes you worthy of power. Emmy." That morning, a new intern stepped into the elevator, nervous, holding coffee for the executive team. A man in his 40s stepped in beside her, tall, still sharp, a little grayer now. Liam Carter. She glanced up wide-eyed. "Are you?" He smiled. "Yes. Did you really marry her?" Liam nodded, eyes soft. "I did, and I'd do it again tomorrow." The elevator dinged. He stepped out. She stood frozen. One hallway, one legacy, and one reminder that no matter what the world says, love, especially the kind that takes courage, is always worth it. Some stories leave us entertained, but others, they leave us changed. Margaret's story wasn't just about business, or scandal, or age. It was about something deeper, the kind of connection that defies logic and asks only one question: will you dare to be seen? Because love, real love, doesn't arrive when everything's perfect. It shows up in the middle of your losses, in the quiet after the fall, and sometimes, just sometimes, it wears a younger face, but speaks to the oldest part of your soul. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments. What moment in Margaret Ellis's journey moved you the most? And if you were listening closely, you might notice how often her name came up. Just for fun, how many times did you hear Margaret Ellis in the story? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you're right within 7 days, we may feature your name in a shout-out as a thank you for being part of our Fiction Echoes family. Watching this later? Don't worry, we still read every comment, and surprises may still come your way. If you enjoy meaningful stories like this one, the next chapter is already waiting. Just click the video that's about to appear, and we'll see you there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a moment of what happens next.